to Nice News, the show about all things happy and positive. My name is Steve Surridge, aka Mr. Happiness 2000, a professional happiness coach,
and I'm Kaie, your co-host for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I know I sound like a broken record, but I say this each and every show. You have a choice of where you could be on a Monday afternoon / evening at 7 o'clock, and you hang out with the cool kids. So we're really, really happy. Thank you so much for joining us. So today we were failures, weren't we, Stephen?
We promised you all last week that we were going to be about sleep this week and help you resolve your sleep issues, etc. But our specialist guest person overslept. So we failed. She didn't. That's an easy joke. And I said to Kaie, what are we going to do? We failed abysmally. We haven't hit our promise. And Kaie said, let's do failure.
Yep. Yeah. And that was it. That's what we did. That's what we're going to talk about today. We've got some wonderful special guests who are going to talk about their experiences of failure. I think we're all going to have a little chat and, talk about how we failed, why we felt we failed, and how we moved through that. First, Stephen's going to tell you all about the show, as he always does.
Let me just find my bit. So the purpose of this show every week is to bring you 30 minutes of positive news, funny moments, all things happiness related, and to interact with you guys as well. But first of all, before we do that, let's go to our first nice news.
As I said, we're going to talk about failure today and how we rise above it. And I like to sandwich the show with a quote and then a quote at the end. My quote today comes from one of my all-time favorite human beings, Nelson Mandela, said, "A brave man isn't someone who doesn't feel fear, but someone who conquers it." Now, fear's got two acronyms. It can either be forget everything and run, or faced everything and rise. And ultimately, it's up to us to decide which one of those two acronyms we're going to live our lives towards. Now, fear is part of our evolutionary DNA. It's what keeps us safe and what warns us for danger. But it's also a bit like germs. It's catching. So, for example, if we're out and we hear a scream or a loud bang, we immediately think something's wrong. And when we think that, we go into fight or flight mode. And human nature is to run away from a situation. So we prime ourselves for danger, and then we look to preserve ourselves from that danger. As kids, we were all scared of something, whether it was the dark, the boogeyman, spiders. Personally, I was scared of dogs. Love them now, hated them then. And although we outgrow our childhood fears, we develop other fears as adults, and we take them into our adult life without even recognizing that we're doing it. We only recognize that when we have to come out of our comfort zone, and then the fear kicks in. One of our biggest fears is failure, and that's something we're going to discuss on the show today. I think one of the biggest examples I've seen are people who are in jobs they hate and they really want to do something else, something that is their passion. But they are frightened that this passion will fail, whether it's financially or business-wise. So they stay in jobs they hate. But regardless of the circumstance, be assured that something will go wrong at some time. And when that happens, that it almost has like this domino effect. We start to worry about what people will think about us and our failure. We start to doubt ourselves. We start to procrastinate as the next thing we're supposed to be doing to recover from the failure. And there can be physical impacts. There's a magazine that I read, and I remember the editor not too long ago saying that whenever she experiences failures, she feels it like a physical body blow. What I found in researching failure is that so many of the really successful people in the world, people like Oprah, or as Stephen calls her, the Big O, Dame Kelly Holmes, Iyanla Vanzant, Tony Robbins, Sir Richard Branson, all of these really high achievers have all failed at something, and sometimes more than once. But they all say the same thing, that failure was the making of them. Instead of seeing it as a setback, they believe that their fear of not succeeding was the key to their success. And this pandemic has made us really fearful, and quite rightly so. But we shouldn't let fear stop us reaching our greatest potential. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain." And I believe that fear only has power if we allow it to hold us captive. Because while we're busy focusing on what if this happens or what if that happens and what we don't want to happen, we're letting our fears paralyze us. Not only that, but you remember last week we were talking about what we put into the universe? If we put fear into the universe, then that is what the universe is going to give us back. So we have to get over that. We want to be the best the best versions of ourselves. And the way we do that is by, as Lovey Ajaji says, get comfortable being uncomfortable. So there's going to be a short clip that you're going to see. It's about a young monk who was told he had to go do battle with fear. One of the lines that really, really struck me was when fear says to this young monk, "If you don't do as I say, if you ignore me, then I have no power." And that to me is what fear is about. It only has power if we give it power. Isn't that right, Stephen?
No, that is absolutely fantastic. It's amazing the wisdom of fairy stories, isn't it?
Yeah.
We are talking failure then, which is very much in the zeitgeist at the moment. All of us experience failure in life. But it is going to be how we deal with it that counts, which our self-sabotage, wow, I said that right, self-sabotage coach Sam is going to mention and talk us through in a moment. Even my ultimate hero, Luke Skywalker, saw himself as a failure in the 2017 movie, The Last Jedi. So no one is immune to failure, but it is how you deal with it and overcome it that makes or breaks you. And I'll put an amazing clip on our Facebook site, our Facebook page, which for the first time we are going live on tonight. So, and that has worked. So we haven't failed in that department, Kaie. But before we go over to Sam, who's going to tell us her wisdom, let me ask Kaie first of all. Kaie,
yes,
do you experience?
Oh gosh, yes. I think for me, it's the little things that I should have done to move me along career-wise. My friends always say about me that one of the things they love is that I have no fear of unusual circumstances. So I'll be the friend that will call them up and say, "You know what? I am off to Zanzibar tomorrow. Who do you know in Zanzibar? Nobody. Well, why are you going there? I don't know. I just feel like going. Going to places on my own where I've never been before and don't know anybody doesn't faze me. But I have worked with Sam, and Sam knows that when it comes to doing things that are to my benefit, that aren't scary, it's like pulling teeth with me. And she's been a great help to me, but it's the little things that I've failed to do. But, you know, my grandmother always used to tell me that rejection was God's protection. If I wasn't doing something, I probably wasn't meant to be doing it at that time. It's a bit like that old saying, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And I think, you know, I have to take a couple of notes before my teacher appears, but they appear and, you know, we get stuff done. What about you, Stephen?
I have failed miserably on a massive scale in every area of my life, personally, romantically, career-wise, business-wise.
You notice that I left out the romantic part. You know, I didn't touch on the romantic part, so I'm just like, yep, we're just going to leave that alone. Yeah, but
it is how it's almost like you have to experience what you don't want to clarify exactly what you do want, and then you move forward. But it is getting that clarity. And it is, you mentioned the word earlier, paralysis, and I think I was paralyzed for a number of years.
Yeah.
And I was stuck, but it was, you know, when I found my way out, you do not look back once you,
no.
And it's almost like the pain of being afraid is so unbearable. You never want to go there again. So it propels you. Anyway, let's go to our audience and find out their story, if any of them have what failures they've experienced and what they learned from it. Who should we go to first then? Okay, I'll let you choose all the time.
Oh, Chris.
Chris, you're unmuted. Tell us your story. Have you experienced failure?
Failure? I mean, searching for a job after being made redundant for 5 months was quite a real wake-up call for me, going to these various different interviews regularly, not hearing back, going in with my CV, suited and booted, coming out and just generally, thinking that I did well, but actually turns out that I wasn't suitable or somebody else got the job. And that kind of, to me, felt like quite a big failure, if you like, because I was going for roles that I was doing before I was made redundant, which were on a similar sort of level. And there was always, that other person in front of me that managed to just kind of get in there. And that really took it out of me, if I'm quite honest. But then it's a case of, you just keep kind of hammering on, and I managed to secure the job that I'm in now. So, I think that persistence.
You just carry on. You'd recommend people just carry on. Martin, what failure have you experienced?
Well, again, sort of job related, I suppose, but it worked out well. I went for an interview to be an accountant and failed. So I had to look, this was when I was still at school, and failed the accountancy interview. So I had to look for another career to pursue, and ended up joining the diplomatic service instead. And as Kaie knows, had nearly 40.
And met me.
That sounds more fun than being an accountant.
So, it's, in a sense, picking that example as at random, it's a classic, every cloud has a silver lining.
Okay, it's quite interesting, isn't it? It does seem it's all about mindset, and when you're kind of more open, maybe we are being guided, which it does sound like it's a different show, but maybe Sam will surprise us. There's, to quote Star Wars, there is a force possibly guiding us, and failure is helping us avoid stuff we don't really want. We are going to come to self-belief, self-sabotage specialist Sam Evans in a moment. But first, it is time for some more nice news.
Well, this story is, again, about being fearful and failure, and somebody just deciding in their life that they'd had enough and they were going to make a change. This is the story of a guy by the name of Sean Clark, and by his own admission, Sean spent most of his life being afraid, not of spiders or heights or dogs like me, but a fear of everyday life. Even as a child, Sean says that he was afraid of the what ifs, and he was anxious even before he knew the word existed or even what it meant. He was basically afraid of living, and he didn't think he could ever change. But as I said, it's all about your mindset. And one day, Sean decided that he'd had enough of being afraid. He said that his ultimate fear was living a life of anxiety, fear, and depression. And it was that motivated him to change. The way he saw it, he had two options. He could be afraid forever, or he could use the fear and make a change. And of course, he decided the latter one. So you're probably wondering what, made him change. He said he got to a point where he'd gone past depression, and he realized he was actually becoming a bit of a joke. So in the link I'm going to provide, Sean details some of the things that he used to fight the fear. And I smiled when I read some of them, because I was like, oh, we've covered some of these on the show we've done. We talked about how we need to play more as adults, and Sean does play. His play is his painting. He expresses gratitude for the little things every day. And most importantly, he says he makes time for what he's truly passionate about. And Sean says, it wasn't an easy road, and it isn't an easy road now, but he says to go from fearful to productive had to start from within, and it was a simple decision. One day he woke up and he was like, enough is enough. And sometimes, Stephen, that's all it takes, that one thought where, you know what, I'm not going to be this person anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. I know it's not going to be easy, but a change has to start.
Yeah, I agree. I think I heard the term, I'm sick and tired of being sick
and tired. Yeah.
And I think that was my experience. Yeah, you just get fed up of living in this kind of Groundhog Day, which is completely boring. And I'm just going to move. And it is, you make a decision to just move. Right, we are talking to someone who certainly is not boring now. Sam Evans. Let me see if I can say it with my teeth in. Self-sabotage specialist. Sam,
Yay!
I unmuted you. Let's see your amazing dazzling smile. Where are you, Sam?
There it is.
I'm here.
There you are.
Wow, you should sell toothpaste.
Do you know what? My nickname at school used to be Miss Colgate. Oh, here she is, Miss Colgate. So yeah.
Is that a compliment? You took that as a compliment,
Of
hopefully?
course. Yeah, I
Of course.
always took things as a compliment.
Wow, brilliant. So yeah, I was going to say, to call yourself a self-belief, self-sabotage specialist that knows all about failure and how to overcome it, you must have failed surely in your life.
Do you know, I was listening to everybody speaking and I was making some notes and I was like, but do we ever really fail? Is it something that we actually really do, or is it a feeling? Now, one of the terms that we use in NLP is there is no failure, there is only feedback. So I look back at my life and I look back at everything I've ever kind of been through, and did I really fail? I don't think I ever really did. I think that everything that we kind of ever go through is like a lesson. But the thing is that we've been conditioned to think and feel that we fail. Oh, you've got 2% in your maths exam. Whoop, you failed. So we've been conditioned to expect of what failure actually is. So I'm going to say, no, I don't think I've ever failed at anything. I think that I have literally grown through what I've gone through to be who I am today.
Wow, okay, so
Wow.
it's about your mindset then, and how is your self-esteem and self-worth tied up with this as well? Because if you don't think much of yourself, you're going to think, oh, I'm rubbish, and I know I'm rubbish, and here it is again, the evidence, I failed my driving test second time or whatever, and everyone tells me I'm rubbish. So you can your mind can paralyze yourself.
It can do, yeah. I mean, I was told my whole life, oh, do you know what? You're not going to pass your GCSEs. I went, yeah. Passed all 9 of them. You're not going to pass your A levels. I thought, yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. You're going to become nothing. You're never going to get married. You're never going to get a house. You are going to be absolutely nothing. But I had this driving force inside of me to say, do you know what, Sam? You are going to do it. Now, regardless of the fact that I pushed myself to do it, deep inside myself, I still felt like I just wasn't good enough. Because fear is not just a feeling. Fear is, there's so many different emotions that you can feel. So the top 4 emotions that I work with are fear of failure, fear of success, fear of I'm not good enough, and fear of other people's opinions. So it does actually boil down to different kinds of areas. Now, my biggest root cause of my failure, feeling like a failure, was I'm not good enough. And it was only until I realized that it was absolute rubbish that was built in my unconscious mind that I actually experienced everything that I'd been through, which made me feel like unconsciously that I wasn't good enough. No matter how much I pushed myself, there was still something going on inside my heart, inside my soul, that kept pulling me back. And it was only when I had to really neutralize it that I was going, actually, no, I never have been a failure. I've actually been all right.
So it is about mindset then. We're constantly coming back to this on the show. And it is all about being conscious of what your inner narrative is, what you're saying to yourself. Because I know my experience, my kind of wake up was in my mid-30s. Last year, most people have probably responded to that. That's so young. You look so young, Steve. Go on, say it. I don't mind.
Oh, you look so young.
Last year, Stephen, you look so young. Yeah.
Everybody says that. My awakening was when I got conscious of what my mind was saying to myself. Up until that point, I kind of saw my thoughts like almost like a radio station playing in the background. It was there, I could hear it, but it wasn't relevant. I didn't really think it had any influence over me. But of course, it is totally driving your life.
Yeah, 100%. And sometimes you don't even know what it is. So what I use this analogy a lot with the clients that I work with. It's like, you know what you want, you know you can do it, because most people do know what they want, but they don't know why they can't move. It's like they're stuck. It's like they're in resistance. So it's like you're standing on the edge of a cliff and everyone's going, go on, jump, jump. And yes, this did happen to me. It was off Cape Greco in Cyprus and I nearly broke my spine. However, I still did it. What drove me over that edge? I think it was the fact that I didn't care and I was just going to do it. But most of our lives, we do kind of feel stuck on the edge of that cliff and we go, but why? Why don't we do it? And that's when the self-sabotage kicks in, the imposter syndrome, the feeling like a failure, I'm not good enough. And it drives us crazy. But what that does is that mind-body connection kicks in. So even though consciously you go, do you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump off that cliff. Unconsciously you go, no, you can't. You're rubbish. You're a failure. You're not good enough. You're never going to do it. So then that connection between the mind and the body, your body goes, she's right. She's right, she can't do it, she can't do it. Then you project that energy, because I'm all about energy, because we are energy. Then when you project it outwards, and then next thing you know, everything around you feels like a failure. And then you feel like you're getting more confirmation back saying, oh, you haven't got the job, you're a failure. You're not getting my clients, you're a failure. Oh, look, everything you do is a failure. So then the unconscious mind goes, look, see, you're right. And it's just a vicious circle.
Yeah.
So it's literally about coming off that wheel of craziness and going, actually, I can be whoever I want to be.
So you mentioned yourself that you had a lot of people from a young age tell you, you're not going to do this, you're not going to pass your A-levels, not going to get your GCSEs. That you kind of answered the question. Where does this initial programming, because as children we're sponges to the environment around us, where does this negative perception of ourselves come from? Which leads...
It's my favourite bit. So I'm actually a trained Montessori teacher. So I have an early years diploma in Montessori early years pedagogy. So what that actually means is that the wonderful lady called Maria Montessori said that between the ages of birth to 7, we learn unconsciously. So the unconscious, she calls it the absorbent mind. So between birth to 3, it's unconscious, and from 3 to 7, it's conscious. So what happens is say birth to 3, it's like, you know, stick your fingers in a plug. I want to do it, I'm going to do it. Because you don't care, you're carefree. But your parents going, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. So it's basically it's the environment that we're brought up in. The fears have been given to us. We're taught how to feel fear. Like I remember I got scared of dogs. Why did I get scared of dogs? Because my family said to me, don't go near the dogs, they're going to bite you. Don't go near it, just don't do it. So my unconscious mind, oh my God, I'm scared. Oh my God, I'm scared. And you know, you're young children, you just want to be free. You just don't want to have any rules. We're carefree, we're so spontaneous. So by the time you get to say 3 to 7, you go to school, the rules begin to kick in, and you can't do this, no, don't do that, don't touch this and don't do that. So all the negations start forming in. You start being told what you can and can't do. So by the time you reach 7, your belief system has been formed. All the experiences that you've been through. So it's like a filing cabinet. You've got your negatives in one, you've got your positives in one, but majority of it is going to be negative. So then what happens after 7 is any experiences that you go through, it's going to be like a banking thing. So, you're not allowed to play with me. I'm not good enough. Boom, that's another memory. Oh, you're rubbish at school. You can't write. Go to the back of the classroom. You go sit on your own, on the table on your own. Yeah, that did happen to me for a year as well, because I talked too much. You know, didn't know that I was going to get paid for it.
No, never, darling.
I thought I wasn't going to be good enough. Yeah, I got told off all the time for talking. So we just bank it and bank it and bank it, and we do it unconsciously, because somewhere along our memories, even from when we're in the womb, we start collecting information unconsciously, and it's a banking system, and it stores it, and it just keeps it in. So, and this is why 9 times out of 10, most adults don't even know what their fears of failure are or why they have these fears, because it's all being banked. It's kind of like you're brushing everything under the carpet, and it's only when you have a great big crash that blanket comes up and everything comes up and you go, oh my God, what is going on? And that's where you've got to really understand how your mind works, calm it down naturally, so then you can start making those internal reprogramming shifts.
So it's almost like we're running on Windows 95 still, when we should
100%.
We all need a mental upgrade.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
So we're still running on childhood programming, would you say?
100%.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, we all are.
Yeah.
Everything that we experience is based on what we've been through as a child. You know, there was a lady that I was talking, one of my clients today, for example, her fear was I'm not good enough. And she actually went back to when she was in the womb, and she was remembering her parents arguing at the time, and her mum was feeling that she wasn't good enough. So she actually thought, she said, Sam, oh my God, I thought it was everything I'd been through. And this is why she was feeling like a failure, feeling not good enough, feeling that she couldn't build her business. It had nothing to do with the experiences in this present life. It was the stuff that had already been given to her, passed down by her parents. And that's how crazy the mind is, but I love it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, Sam, you've got some techniques and processes that you can share with us to help us reboot ourselves and upgrade ourselves.
I do.
Back to Sam then, everyone. But first, before that, it is time for some more nice news.
When I saw this, it's a kind of story, like a fairy story, but like most fairy stories, Stephen and I were discussing earlier, they're actually quite scary and quite, and you know, the reason why you should not read stories to children late at night is because you'll give them nightmares. And this one, if somebody had read me this, I probably would never have slept again. But it's a story of how fear can paralyze us to the point where it can kill us. So a man commits a crime and he is sent to the king for his punishment. And the king says to him, okay, you've done this terrible thing. You have two choices of punishment. You can either be hung, or you can go through that door over there. And it was a big black door. It was scary looking, dark, made of iron, you know, the stuff of nightmares. So the criminal thought about it for a hot second. And then he said, you know what? I'm going to decide on the road. King says, are you sure? He's like, yeah. I'm going to decide on the road. So as the noose is being slipped over his head, he turned to the king and he said, just as a matter of curiosity, what is behind that door? And the king laughed and said, you know, it's funny. I offer the same choice to everybody who comes before me, and nearly everybody picks the road. And the criminal says, okay, that's fine, but tell me what's behind the door. Obviously, I'm about to die. I can't tell anybody. And the king looked at him for a very long time, and then he said, you know what's behind that door? Freedom. But most people are so afraid of the unknown that they would rather take the rope than go through that door. That is one of the scariest things I've ever read, but it's how fear treats us. We would rather stick with what we know, even if it's to our detriment, than take the leap.
Stories we're told as children, full of trolls and ogres and death and destruction.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it all the same. No, brilliant. So we're coming back then to Sam.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all looking to you for, you are our only hope. How do we reprogram ourselves? What three processes or techniques can you share with us now? So we can start working on ourselves to reduce the fear that we've got and start living more.
So I think one of the most powerful things you've got to do is you have to acknowledge the fact that those fears exist. What people tend to do is they tend to just go, oh, let's just forget about it. Let's instead of feeling like fear of failure, let's say that, oh yes, I'm a great success. But that's going to be a huge shock to your system. So it's about making those gentle transitions. So first off, you've got to acknowledge the fact that those fears exist. Ask yourself, what are those fears? How do they currently make you feel? What is it preventing you from achieving? And if you was to work through those fears, what will it allow you to achieve instead? So it's kind of like you're walking over a bridge. Here's the fear and here's the not fear, feeling unfearful. So it's about going gently over that bridge so you can go, right, do you know what? Yeah, I can actually get through it. Obviously, one of the best things you can do is hire me as your coach because I'm so good at what I do. But if you are obviously still want to understand how your fears work, then it is just about making gentle steps, baby steps. You don't want to put your body into shock. So what happens is let's say, for example, you say, right, today I'm going to write a book and I'm going to do it right from the very beginning, and I'm not going to let nothing fear me, I'm just going to do it. And then your body goes, oh God, let me do something else instead. Procrastination kicks in. Now, procrastination is one of the biggest ways that prevents you from taking action. So one thing you can do is, first off, do it anyway. Just baby steps, just push yourself through it. Because if you don't do it, the procrastination is going to take over, the fears are going to take over, and you're just going to delay yourself even more. Acknowledge the fact that it exists, do baby steps to take actionable steps to make whatever it is that you want to do happen, and just believe in yourself. You've got to have the belief in yourself. When you believe in yourself that anything is possible, you can 100% achieve the goals that you want to achieve.
Okay, so how can we make ourselves have more self-belief?
How could you have more self-belief? Okay. When it comes to your belief system, you've got to first understand how you think and feel and behave the way that you do. This is not something that's going to be done overnight. People say that if you do the audios and you do the affirmations and you're going to be transformed, but unfortunately it doesn't work like that. What you've got to do is you need to work unconsciously. You need to, so how I basically work is I'll explain how I work. So let's say, for example, this is where you are right now. This is your desire, this is your current state. This is where you are, this is where you think and feel. But what you want to do is you want to go up here. You want to go to that next level. So like, as I say, new level, there's a new devil. Now that devil is that gap in between. So here you are, and you want to go over here. Now there's two types of people. There's the people that go, oh, that's it, I'm going to make it. Oh, crash burn. And then there's one goes, yeah, actually I can kind of make it. Well, do you know what? That doesn't feel very nice. Let me go back over in the comfort zone. So what happens is the mind is going to pull you back, and you're going to stay here. This is why we feel stuck and why we feel resistance. So what we've got to do is we've got to get you over to here. When you get over here, in order to do that, is you first need to understand what's holding you back. What are those past behaviors? What are those past memories? What are those past beliefs? You've then got to get into the present moment. Once you get into the present moment, this is about taking steps now. See, what happens is I don't know what else to really say. I always say this. So what colour is your dog? It's brown. Oh, but you know what? I did have a black cat before, but then it died, and then I just didn't really look after it anymore. So what people tend to do is they tend to go into the victim mentality, like, you know, poor me, and they don't want to do that. But what you got to do is you got to get back to the present moment. And it's kind of like making that conscious decision. No, I'm going to stay in the present moment. Once you get in the present moment, what happens is your mind becomes ready to let go of those self. So what are those emotions holding you back? The anger, the sadness, the fear, the hurt, the shame, the guilt. All these emotions are negative emotions, and they're attached to memories from the past. It's when you truly let them go. It's basically like letting them go with love. Okay, so that was the memory. That's how I used to think and feel about it. Now I think and feel about it. It's about being grateful for those experiences rather than coming from a place of anger, resentment. Then what you do is you then start to instill a new way of thinking, feeling and behaving. So let's say, for example, you had a memory of when you was left at school on your own, made you feel really like, oh, no one wants me and I feel like a failure. Well, instead, you've now reconditioned that memory. And once you recondition the memories that are holding you back, you then start thinking differently. Well, actually, hold on a minute, I can get to this new level because I don't think like that over there anymore, and I don't need to be in my comfort zone anymore, and I can actually move here. Once you get to that level, you've actually instilled a new way of thinking, feeling, behaving. And then the next time you get to this level, because you're always going to be reaching new levels, you're going to go through the same pattern process. But instead of going back into your comfort zone, instead of crashing and burning, what you're going to do is you are going to have the breakdown, break through, and then reach the new level. And that is how you truly rewire your unconscious mind.
Wow, okay, so if I can recap then, so the feeling is an emotion that kind of paralyzes you.
100%.
And to kind of address and change the charge of that negative emotion, that fear, you have to get conscious of what past trauma, would you say, or past event has created that fear within you. And then you have to neutralize it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, let's go to our audience now. Sam, if you can stay with us, let's ask Deirdre. Deirdre, what did you think hearing?
Well, yeah, it makes sense because the reason I laugh is because I've had an experience like that this week. A friend volunteered me for this program, and it's a program which is about thought leadership and personal branding, and it made me rethink about, for instance, okay, what is it that you're afraid of? Are you afraid of actually completing this and actually doing it well? Because I think what it made me do was push up against all these fears that I had. Lo and behold, I created it. I pushed past the fear, and I'm still on the course. So, because I was going to quit the course. So,
okay. How does that make you feel about yourself then, where you pushed through your fears?
Well, to be honest, I was exhausted for the whole weekend, but today, even though I haven't had much sleep last night, I feel really like, yeah, I'm about to take on the world. That's how I feel today. Don't know how I feel at the end of the week, but yeah.
Yes.
No, that's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that with us, Deirdre. Let's ask Giselle's iPad. Let me just unmute Giselle's iPad.
Yeah, if you can find your way to resonate with what it is you want, then you can achieve it. And It's all about energy with me. Not so much just changing my mind, but actually changing my mind, but using energy healing at the same time to actually imprint that into my subconscious. So
change your feeling, change your feeling.
Yeah, change my feeling. So I've used homeopathy in the past and acupuncture. EFT is what I currently use now.
Wow, okay. We're going to have to look at those topics on different shows. Thanks for that. Right, we are going to come back and hear in a moment two people who have benefited from Sam's teaching. They're going to tell us their story, what fears they overcome and where they are now. But first, before we go there, it is time for some more nice news.
When we talk about overcoming fear, and as I said at the beginning of the program, it's not overcoming the fear that makes us courageous. It's the act of doing something that may scare us beyond measure. Now, Charles Tillman is scared of large bodies of water and sharks. But not only did the former NFL athlete decide that he wanted to face his fear, he wanted to do something good whilst facing that fear. And he wanted to raise some money for charity. So Charles decided he was going to build a boat and row across Lake Michigan to raise money for his charitable foundation called the Cornerstone Foundation. Charles knows nothing about boats. He doesn't know how to build them. He doesn't know how to row them. Certainly doesn't want to be on the water, but he figured, you know what, I'm going to do this. Okay, so I'm going to build a boat because it might be cheaper than actually buying a boat. And the money I save in between can go to my foundation. So with a little help from his friends, he got a seaworthy vessel built. And last September, he rowed across Lake Michigan and in the process raised $200,000 to treat childhood cancer. Now, Charles firmly believes that everybody should conquer their fear no matter what it is. So by that token, according to Charles, I should make a journey on the tube during rush hour. But I can tell you that's not going to happen just yet. He says that people are calling him brave for what he does, for what he did in the rowing across the lake and raising the money. But he says the truly brave people are the ones who face their fears and do their best to conquer them.
Okay, so we are joined now by two people, two Joes actually, so this could be, my brain could go into malfunction mode. We'll start with Female Entrepreneurs Academy, Joe, if that's okay.
Hello.
Joe,
Hello, Joe.
Thanks for joining us today. So Joe, tell us first of all very briefly, because we want to know your success and your positive journey rather than where you've come from, but tell us briefly, where was you before you sought out Sam to help you?
I was in a spot before I came to Sam where I was just overly emotional all the time, and I was being driven by those emotions. Those emotions were causing my behaviour to be the way that they were. And because I'm very mindful as well, because I'm also a mind work coach, I do similar things to Sam. I knew that something was wrong. I knew that I was massively in my own way, but I didn't know what was causing it. We did the unconscious work. She made me realise a lot about my childhood, how lots of things in my past were affecting me now. And ever since it's just been eliminated, and don't get me wrong, there was a massive element of fear, yes, that was there. But ever since it's been eliminated, it's kind of like, I'm just unrecognisable. I've just, like you say, new level, new devil, but I'm like just constantly growing all the time. When I came to Sam, she kind of literally peeled every layer you can imagine, helped me sort my head out from an emotional perspective, helped me with my limiting beliefs, got rid of all of my self-sabotaging behaviours. I'm just a completely different person. I'm so grounded now. I'm so calm. I'm not over emotional. And I'm just generally just really happy within myself. And obviously being a happiness coach yourself, you know that happiness comes from within. And then that projects out to every other area of your life. And that's what's happened. So.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for sharing that. Let's ask the other Joe now. Joe, I won't call you Joe number 2.
God, where do I start? That's a problem. So before I found Sam, I had been in corporate finance for 20 years. Suffered with depression for at least 25, 26 years. And I was an absolute wreck. Now thinking about it, having heard all the conversations that you've had this evening, so I didn't used to go for promotions at work because of the fear of having to sit in an interview room with people that you knew you would then have to face a few days later. And I felt like I would have just completely failed. So I didn't have an interview from the very first day that I went into the business for 11 years. What she unearthed in me was just phenomenal. And, you know, I would never, ever have put myself in a position like this evening. I would never be sitting talking to you guys if it hadn't been for the work we'd gone through. And again, it goes back to all my beliefs from childhood. She did what's called timeline therapy.
Yeah.
You go back, and you'll know that, won't you, Guess? Because you're like, oh, through it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's one of Sam's favourites, but because it is one of the most effective therapies, I suppose, that you can ever have. I mean, I'd even had regression therapy. I've paid thousands for counsellors. I've had all sorts of treatments, for want of a better phrase. But I have never felt the way that I feel now. And more than half of what Sam unearthed has never even come into the equation before. The happiness that I feel, I just was not feeling that before. I was exhausted.
It is so powerful, isn't it? You have to confront your fears, don't you? You have to. You can't leave, I call it crap. You can't leave the crap unconscious and turn your back on it. You have to be courageous enough. And you have to be ready, and you'd be willing to confront, you know, the dark stuff from your childhood. Oh, thanks so much for sharing, Joe and Joe. And yep. Sam, it's brilliant to hear how amazing you are. We're going to have to get you back. You know, once we get successful people on the show, there's no escape, you realise?
So, Sam was talking earlier about the fact that she jumped off a cliff somewhere in Cyprus. And, you know, that's sometimes how we have to live life, that jumping off the cliff moment. J.K. Rowling has a great perspective on failure. When I read this, I was like, yeah, this sounds about right. I've included the clip. It's from her Harvard speech she gave some time back. And she said, it's impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you failed by default, and nobody wants to fail by default. So let's say, for example, you're jumping into that sea. Now, when you start jumping, you're going to start screaming because you're scared. It's like, ah! But somewhere in that descent, the scream is going to turn to joy. So you're getting a 2-for-1. You're screaming because you're scared, but you're also joyful because you're not really scared as you're going down. And, you know, we like to include a bit of science. While you're feeling the fear and conquering it, it's actually empowering you. So the more that you do what you're afraid of, the more the fear dissolves, and what remains is pure joy. And it's a study being done. I didn't believe that there were 15 positive sides to fear, but there are. One of which is reinvention, because when you conquer your fear, you become a new and different person. So much so that you don't recognize the person that you used to be before the fear. The realization, it's almost like the universe is saying to you, well, okay, you've conquered this fear, so I'm going to give you something as a reward. And what that reward can be is new resources and opportunities, because you are no longer that person that's afraid. And this sense of accomplishment, because you've been empowered to help other people conquer their fears. So it's like win, win, win. And you can keep winning for about 15 times before you get tired. So yeah. Great stuff.
Sam, very quickly, we're going to wrap up now, but if somebody wants more information on how to overcome failure, how to fight fear, where can they go?
Well, you can come to my Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/Sam Evans Global, and all my details are all on there.
And they will see your lovely smile.
They will.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, Sam. It's been brilliant. Right, we are going to wrap up now then. So next week, we promise you, it's going to be about sleep disorders.
Definitely.
Remember now, we're now on Facebook. All the links that Kaie mentioned are going to be found on our Facebook page, which is going to appear below now. So it's facebook.com/nicenewsshow. Sign up to that if you haven't done so already. You can email us if you've got any questions or suggestions for future themes. Yeah, that is me. Until next week. Kaie, do you want to say anything?
Yep, just one quick reminder. Those of you last week will remember we started a 30-day gratitude challenge. Don't forget to write in your books if you haven't already done so. We're back on the 17th of August to talk about what a month of writing down what we're grateful for has been beneficial to us, or maybe not. I think it will be. And I'll leave you with this one quote. It comes from the designer Tabitha Webb. Yes, you can ask what goes wrong, but what if it goes right?